I'm Manning.
The name's Collins. Matthew Collins.
If we were going to do impressions, I wish you would have given me a heads up because I would have tried and attempted to do a Sean Connery. The name is Manning.
My name's
Frank.
Frank.
I can't do it. I can't do it. And well, and this is,
Our James Bond retrospective.
and this is where if I had sound effects, I'd do the or something along the lines of like, I'd do the John Barry. John Barry is the name of the guy who wrote it, right?
Yes, I believe so.
The theme. I'd play John Barry's theme of James Bond right here. Underneath all this, because now that StreamYard has the ability to put music underneath that, we would play the James Bond and let it go into it, but we can't because they only give us like 5 different options or something. One of them is like,
and we'd also
rock.
get copyright striked. So,
well, not if we did like 2 seconds. That is not how it works.
It's YouTube, Manning.
Listen. I have done.
Were you about to say you believe in YouTube? Come on.
Well, no, because I remember I literally have used the Gone with the Wind intro in my show, and they haven't cut me down. I don't get a strike. So I don't just know if people, if YouTube is just not aware, or if it's another. I have to use like a certain.
Quote Lando Calrissian, our operation is small enough not to be noticed, which is advantageous to our clients.
Wow, that's really really accurate. But regardless, everyone, welcome to the James Bond retrospective from 2 fans. One who is more of a new Bond fan, and Matt, who is the wise older fan. But you're not older, so you're the you've been longer fan.
So essentially, what Manning is trying to say in so many words, Manning has sort of gone into this series with the Craig stuff, I would say, is that what sort of got you into it?
100%.
Yeah. Whereas I have been watching these movies since elementary school, which was around probably Brosnan's last movie was 2004.
I'm not good with dates, but I can tell your last one was
Die Another Day, I think was 2004. So I've been watching from around there. So I've been watching these obviously a lot longer than Manning has, and I've seen every Bond movie multiple times. That was Sci-Fi Channel growing up was just like,
oh wow,
I swear it was like every weekend there was like a Bond movie, and I was watching them. Which you might be like, your parents let you watch Bond movies, but my dad was a Bond guy, and we would watch them together. So it's one of those things to where you get a pass. If your dad is into these types of movies, you get a pass on watching them. Yeah, I love James Bond, and that's one of the reasons why me and Manning decided to do this, is because I feel like a lot of Bond stuff I watch on YouTube, it's always the same thing. It's always like 2 really old school fans who've been watching this stuff since they were kids, talking about it. Whereas here we get the perspective of someone who's a little bit more nostalgic for the series and someone who is not so much. Doesn't mean Mang's going to be more critical of the series. It doesn't mean I'm going to be less critical. It's just we're both coming at it from different angles. And to start with that, Manning, I have a question for you, because we are starting a 6-month endeavor for everyone watching. We are going, because in October it will be the 60th anniversary of Dr. No. So we are going to be covering their 6 Bond actors. So once a month, starting this month, you'll be getting videos on all the Bond actors, from Connery to Craig. And so right now I'm going to ask this question. And then in the last episode, I'm going to re-ask the question. And that question is, Manning, who is your favorite Bond actor? And what is your favorite Bond movie?
An excellent question, and one that I'm excited to ask again when we get to the final Bond. Well, the final one, the most recent Bond, we shall say. Final is...
When it comes to James Bond, nothing is final.
Agreed. Just like how in the MCU, nothing is final. In Star Wars, nothing is final. When you have a big property that really doesn't like to end, that doesn't have like, you know...
Well, you have a property like James Bond that doesn't need to end. Like we said, there's 6 actors already, so it's not like it's it's not like Indiana Jones, to where that series is pretty much confined to Harrison Ford at this point.
Yeah.
So that might end with 5. Who knows?
Wait, don't you mean 7? We can't forget David Niven.
Yes, we can.
Why not? Casino Royale. He was great. No, I'm kidding. All right,
Stop.
moving
Jimmy
right on.
Bond, get out of here.
Moving along. What I was gonna say is that it's no as Matt teed me off. It is Daniel Craig. That is when I first began to. I've seen clips of Bond before. I remember watching bits of Doctor No, bits of like Thunderball, and bits of Diamonds Are Forever. Those are ones I remember. And I remember like watching, I think, From Russia with Love and The Man with the Golden Gun a long time ago when I was at the library and I saw them, but I barely remembered them. I wasn't really allowed to watch them. I kind of snuck rented them because I wanted to see James Bond, and I was kind of like, oh, this is good. But my mom never let me watch them. My dad had them on sometimes because he was like, hey, James Bond. I remember watching this as a kid. My mom would not have liked that. So if you're hearing this, Mom, I'm sorry. But I love Daniel Craig. That was one that I really went richly and full head first into. And then through the ones that he's been in, all five, I have to go with the Skyfall. Skyfall is the one that has to me some really great emotional weight, some great action sequences, some really great thematic themes. Thematic themes, it's kind of redundant. Thematic weight to the themes that are presented. There we go. And I really love what Craig does in that film in particular, as well as a great villain. I think it's an overall amazing package for what I like in a Bond film, which is, I guess, of course, the more current that we've seen before in the past. But after watching these, I can tell. Now you're about to tell me something very different than what I'm about to than what I have said before, but I can tell they're very different Bond movies, and I think that's the beauty. Bond is definitely of the time, whatever is the evolution of the Bond at that time. And but please, I'd love to hear and put the question back onto you. For the Bonds that we have had, all wonderful six Bonds, six or six, right?
6. Yeah.
Six Bonds. Which one has been your favorite, and what has been your favorite film in this entire franchise?
Well, to answer your first question that I didn't pose to you, I do agree with that. And I think, our viewers who stick with us, they'll see that Bond is a series that changes with errors.
Yes.
And a lot of Bond actors, their films are very much linked to the times that they were made. Um, and I kind of like that. And sometimes you have, like Connery was really there. Action movies weren't really anything until Doctor No. So he was kind of a front leader, and then you had Roger Moore, who his movies were coming out in the 70s, and his movies shift because the 70s in film was a very like shifting time. Like sometimes they were serious, other times they were kind of fun and playful. Brosnan is very much the same thing. And then you get to Craig, which I've always said, like Casino Royale is, and we'll get into this to Craig, but like that's the only James Bond movie you can make post Batman Begins. It's the only thing you could have done, and that is something cool. And that's the reason why James Bond has stuck around for 60 years and will continue to, because it does evolve with the times. It doesn't stay static, and that's great because I think that's what leads to great discussions. But to answer your question, my favorite Bond actor, there are 3, and they're always fighting. But my favorite has to be Pierce Brosnan. I think Pierce
Oh
is a
wow,
I think Pierce does not get the credit he deserves.
I
And I
agree with
do
that.
understand his final 2 entries I can understand, but his first 2 are incredible. And GoldenEye is my favorite Bond movie. It's funny how our favorite Bond actors and Bond movies go hand in hand. But I think Pierce, he's able to have both sides of Bond. He's able to have the fun, playful side that, Roger Moore did really well. But he also has, particularly in those first 2 movies, he has dark moments. Like in Tomorrow Never Dies in the hotel room. Like that's dark. He's doing some like Dalton stuff in that, and that's what I love about him. I love that he's a great sort of pairing of both things, and we'll definitely get into that when we get to there. That's the thing that's like kind of fun and kind of sucks about this is like when you're talking about
Mhm.
Skyfall, I have so many thoughts, but I'm just like, nope, gotta save that for that episode. And
Please.
hopefully everybody watching sticks around and tell us in the comments what your favorite Bond actor is, your favorite Bond movie. And if you stick with us, maybe it'll change. Maybe if you watch these movies along with us, you'll see some Bond
Maybe.
movies you haven't seen before, and you might be introduced. But speaking of Bond movies, we should probably start talking about these movies.
Yes, we should.
And it all began in 1962 with a little film called Dr. No.
Da-da, da-da. Cue the John Barry theme. Da-da, da-da,
Yes.
da-da.
The only James Bond film as of now, and probably ever, to have no theme
Yes.
accompanying it. The James Bond theme is its only theme.
Can I just say real fast is that when I first saw Dr. No, because James Bond has been synonymous, even more so now, where it has won back-to-back-to-back Oscars for their theme now, which was unprecedented back then. Nominations, sure, but never a win.
Yeah.
The fact that the first entry did not have a single, that's wild to me because it's so synonymous.
It had a theme. It's just the James, it's just that theme I think became so iconic to the character.
Yes.
It's kind of like how John Williams and Steven Spielberg will still refer to the Indiana Jones theme as the Raiders March because it was made specifically for Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it became so synonymous with the character that it just stuck around even though it wasn't intended to. Yeah. But yeah, still, and it makes you kind of think of like what I wonder if I haven't gone and looked because there are some really incredible, artists out there. I wonder if anyone has tried to sort of write a Dr. No theme in the vein of like the, From Russia with Love onward. I wonder if anyone has attempted that yet.
I'm sure YouTube, there's a lot of creative people out there. I'm sure something has been sent.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that because that'd be pretty cool.
No, I agree. And to piggyback off of that, this is the first James Bond film because I remember that for a long time, if I'm not mistaken, this wasn't originally going to be the very first James Bond film. It was going to be Thunderball, correct?
No, I think From Russia with Love was supposed to be the first one. I know there was a bunch of rights issues that were preventing them from.
Isn't there always?
But I do know Dr. No was not the first choice. I'm not sure if the rights were with Ian Fleming or I have no idea. I know Casino Royale definitely wasn't going to be the first because someone else owned it, which is why in 67 we got that other version that we will not speak of. And that is something before we start, because I know there will be people in the comments. We're only doing the official Eon Productions, which means in this episode we will not be covering Never Say Never Again. It's an interesting film. If you have not watched it, I would suggest to go and watch it, particularly if you like Connery, but we are not going to be talking about it here, mostly because Manny and me did not rewatch it. And also because it's not official.
I haven't even watched it, so I don't even know what it's about. Like, I know it's a remake of Thunderball. That's it.
Yeah,
so
it's fine.
I've been told.
I feel like that movie, and I might get hate from this. I feel like that's one of those movies to where, depending on, I think a certain type of Bond fan likes it because it was Connery and it came out during the Moore era. So if you were more of a Connery guy, it was nice to have Connery back. If you weren't liking, particularly because it came out around the time of Moore's last two movies, which are, we'll get to those in 2 episodes.
Okay, because I wanted to say this because from what I'm looking at, Total Film said that this was originally meant to be the first Bond film was Thunderball, but it became Dr. No.
Yeah.
But Thunderball was the center of a legal dispute that began in 1961 and ran until 2006 officially. Woo! Because why not?
Why not? If there's money to be made, someone will be annoyed. But yeah, it wasn't the first, but I'm kind of glad it is the first. Because it is, and I haven't read, so I have read most of the Bond novels, but not in a very long time. So I don't remember the book very well, but at least for the movie, I like the fact that it's kind of just a more straightforward adventure. Like there's no crazy gadgets. It's very much Bond is sent on a mission to Jamaica, and he's doing what Bond does as a spy. He's, figuring stuff out, and then it all culminates in a great final act. But it's a very like it's one of my comfort movies. It's a movie that I can put on like any day of the week. But what do you think about it, man? Particularly for someone who is, not super into the older school stuff. Was, considering going from like No Time to Die, that was Daniel Craig's last one, right?
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
going from that back to this, that must have been jarring for you.
It was, and I will add to the fact is that I tried to do this chronologically. That's why I literally just finished Diamonds
I
Are
did the same
Forever.
thing. I watched it
Um,
in order.
I didn't get a chance to I didn't, and actually Doctor No was one that I didn't get a chance to rewatch. This is out of the only
Okay.
one I didn't get a chance to rewatch. So this one's a little bit fresher, or excuse me, not as fresh.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think I for some reason I said to myself, I'm gonna start with Russia from Love because spoiler alert, I really like that one. And then I'd come back to Doctor No, but I just never did. So whoopsies, that's on me. But I think Doctor No is one of those films that funnily enough, I did not know that it wasn't that well received on initial. It was not like overwhelmed from what it is to now, from what it is back then.
Well,
I read some of the
critics
reviews.
didn't
Go
love
ahead.
it, but
Yeah.
audiences ate it up, which
Yeah, as the
ultimately,
box office shown, it was
yeah.
made bonkers money.
But again, I think, like I said about, I think critics just, which again, this is a thing about critics, sometimes sometimes when things are new, they don't know how to respond to it. And Dr. No was a new kind of action movie. It was a complete, you just didn't see characters like this in movies at that time.
It's very distinct, and as someone who definitely can look back in a lens and being like, I can see the issues that I have now with it, but I was not. We're never going to be back then and kind of understand what it was like in the cultural zeitgeist at the time.
Yeah.
All we can look about is what it was like from here and kind of look at it objectively from there and do the best that we can to see what it was like from then. But from now, from where we are here, I think Doctor No is fine. I think there are some great sequences, but at the end of the day, I think it is also you're right, it is the most straightforward by far of I think all of the there are no huge twists and turns. It starts off, of course, I think really fun. Like those first 15 minutes or so is like great quintessential setting up the world of the 007 of M, and then ultimately of being able to have James Bond and his iconic line while he's gambling,
Yeah.
name's Bond. James Bond. That's just iconic. And I love that first 15 minutes because the killing of I forgot what double O that was murdered.
I
Do you
think it
remember?
was 6.
6.
I don't know.
I will trust you on that.
Can't remember off the top of my head. I
That's
watched the
okay.
movie
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah, and like the murder that happens, and then the plot of like there is something going on here in Jamaica. We need to send you. It is incredibly straightforward. I think that there are some huge missteps when it comes to literally every character that is not James Bond. Like even Doctor No feels kind of like I think he has a cool aesthetic with his mechanical prosthetic limbs, but at the end of the day, I'm just kind of like, oh, he's not as interesting as I wish he could have been in comparison to the other villains that we get later on. I think he's not as complex, or maybe not complex is the
Yeah,
wrong word.
I mean,
Go
Dr.
ahead.
No is one of my favorites. Like
Okay.
villains. What I like about him is one, I like, and again, this is something in a lot of movies you don't see, particularly nowadays with like all the superhero stuff. He doesn't show up until the last act.
Yes.
You hear him, and that's kind of what I like. I like that, particularly that scene when they bring
Mm.
the doctor into the room and you just hear his voice and the look on the doctor's face, you just know this is a guy you don't screw with. And then that whole dinner scene is great, like where he's just like, it turns out you are just a stupid policeman, and Bond, when they take Honey Rider away and he stands up and he's like, I wouldn't try that. It's great. And yeah, he's not as super complex as villains that come later, but I think, I don't know, in the classics are a sense of like movie villains. I just have always, I like the mechanic arms. I like the
Yeah, they're
fact that it's the
cool.
thing that screws him at the end. And I also like that because unfortunately, James Bond sometimes, and we'll talk about this with Blofeld, I don't like it when James Bond has villains that he can't go fisticuffs with. Like, I don't like that,
Yeah,
and I like that at the end of this movie, James Bond gets to go fisticuffs with Dr. No.
he does.
Like, I don't like when there's just the big, bad villain, and there's the henchman, and the
Oh,
henchman and
really?
Bond have the fight. It's cool, but I'm someone who I guess I just come from that sort of I love like
Hmm.
Robin Hood and that stuff, and like
Oh,
the
fascinating.
Sheriff of Nottingham is really the villain in Robin Hood. Prince John, I guess you can kind of argue, but like, and the sheriff is the guy who Robin always has the sword fight with. I it's okay. I don't want to say like with Blofeld, I don't like it, but and maybe this is just me. I like seeing my heroes beating the shit out of the villains. I don't like it when the villain just gets
What
put in
does that say
handcuffs.
about you, Matt?
I don't know. But you look at Star Wars and Luke Skywalker
No,
gets
you're
to
right.
fight Vader, and I kind of like this. I like that this whole movie, and also I love the fact that it's like, for as smart as Dr. No is, and for all these things he can do, the one thing he can't do is beat James Bond head to head. Like, when it comes down to
Yeah,
it, James Bond whoops him because he's James Bond,
it's
and that's
Sean Connery in
awesome.
his prime.
Yeah. And
Can't
look,
beat him.
I'm a straight man, but Sean Connery is so good looking in this movie. Okay. He
I
is.
yes, he has that.
Like, that's a man.
He has a great demeanor that kind of like just exudes confidence and sexiness.
I
I
mean,
can see at the time where he
he
was
was
a sex
a
symbol. I get
Mr.
it.
Olympia either winner or runner up before
Wait,
this.
really?
Yeah, which, if I'm not mistaken, that's the same contest Arnold would go on to win 7 times in a row. So, Connery wasn't,
Okay.
he wasn't a guy off
Hmm.
the street, he was, I mean, before this, he was in like Darby O'Gill and the Little People. He was an actor, but he also had, he was a man's man as well. Which I think is one of the reasons why they picked him as Bond,
Yeah.
because he
And I
was a
will
man's
add,
man.
yes, and I think from what they were going for with Bond, yes, from all the ones that we've watched, and I actually I haven't gotten to see George Lazenby's portrayal of Bond yet, which I've heard really good things in his one movie. We're gonna talk about that afterwards. How are we gonna stretch out his one movie for one of his eras?
We'll
But
find out
we'll find it. We'll
next
find a way.
time.
Life finds a way. But James Bond is not Sean Connery's James Bond in Doctor No, and this just shows you the difference of the time period. He's not someone who is incredibly complex. He's not someone who has like a darker past. Like, there might be throwaway lines here or there, but he is there to be an action hero, to save the day, to get the girl, and to look good doing it. Like, that is James Bond and Sean
He is
Connery,
the
and he
classic
exudes that. Yes.
definition of an action hero, and that's why
Yes.
when and I'll get into more of my thoughts when we get towards the end of the episode. But when Sean passed away, the first thing I watched was Doctor No,
Oh,
and you
wow.
watch that open, and you're just like right there, like the whole poker table, the way he takes a cigarette out, the way he lights it, the way he says his name, which is in response to her saying her name like that. It's just, and obviously, Terrence Young, who I believe is the director of this, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
it is.
Terrence
You are
Young,
correct.
obviously, and the writers and everything, but there's also sometimes there's just the reason why roles become iconic is because you get the right actor in them. And Sean Connery, like, look, and I like George Lazenby, we'll get into this, but if Lazenby was in this movie, I don't know if we're talking about James Bond the way we do. I
No,
really think the success of the series in many ways rides on Connery just being that guy he was. Yeah.
agreed. Connery was the Bond that was needed in the 60s at that time. He very much exudes Americana, even though he wasn't American, funnily
No.
enough. But it's like this a very British, but like, and I mean Americana, like after World War II and the American prosperity, right before the Cold War, there was this kind of sense of just kind of, if I'm not mistaken from my history, there was a sense of like, um, there are the good guys and they're the bad guys, and Sean Connery is the good guy. It is a very black and white world.
Yeah, his movies are very, very black and white. There's no gray, and we'll see as Bond movies go on, the gray starts
There's
to show
lots
up
more
way
gray.
more. But again, that's something like you said. It's of the era. You know that
Yes.
that was the thing. You know there were the good guys. This is. I mean, again, I considering the Cold War is not a true war. There's no real definite starting point. But if this was not in the Cold War, this movie is coming out right on the edge. I mean, and his later moves are being made literally during the Cold War, and we'll get to
Yes.
one that I think a lot of the reason why it's the way it is because it's being made in the height of the Cold War.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie, obviously, are there things like Honey Rider is not the most well written of the Bond girls.
No, and that's kind of why it also brings it down, because when I said all supporting here, even if Felix Leiter in this one isn't really that, I don't
Yeah,
know,
he's
that
just kind of
compelling.
there.
Yeah, and it's like I've loved him so far in almost every one he's been in, save for, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
I won't spoil which one, but this is one of them he's not that great in. Not because it's just the material is so straightforward. It's just Bond, and I think outside of really the kind of fantastic production design from almost
Yes.
every single Bond film going forward, as cheesy as it is for that time period, again for the time, and even now it kind of works because a Bond villain's lair, people know what that is. It's supposed to be like this kind of very over the top, thumbs twiddle twirling, and like, yes, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Not
And that's the
literally,
thing.
but
All this came from Dr. No. So the
yes,
simplicity, it's like, everything's got to come from a starting point. Like
of course,
every great work of art, there's a line that first has to be drawn. Like Da Vinci had to paint the Mona Lisa, he had to start with one line and then he got to the Mona Lisa. And Dr. No is very much the first line and is the most
yes,
straightforward line. But I think, like any good film series, you look at what worked and you look at what didn't work and you try to improve on that. And I think, unless you have any more thoughts, I think we can move on to From Russia with Love.
yeah, no, I think, yeah, I think at the end of the day, also I found out that, like, technically speaking, the Cold War was first originally announced in 1947. I mean, not officially, but that's when the first little thing. So I did
Okay.
not realize it started that soon. So
Well, okay. The
history,
Cold War, if as a history person I could take 5 seconds, it's not a
please,
real war. It was
of
more
course,
just tensions between a bunch of nations, mainly the US and
shorthand.
Russia. Uh, and so it's, guys, there's no definite, it's not like World War II to where there's a definite beginning and end to that. The conflict, oh, I mean, there was an end with Gorbachev and all that, but that's for our Rocky Four
Tear down that
retrospective.
wall.
Yeah, you are going to tear down that wall. It's going to be great.
In the fall of the Soviet Union, all that fun stuff. No, yeah,
uh,
I think that's why I think Doctor No is not as high for me, because it's improved. The formula from Doctor No is improved upon as we keep going forward in the James Bond, specifically Sean Connery era, in my
yeah,
view.
I agree. It's not my favorite of his, but I think as someone who's seen all these movies, sometimes when things get really wacky and crazy, which the series does, it's nice to have an entry that is just so
Yes.
straightforward that you could just throw on.
All right, but moving on to now, Russia with Love. Oh, look at that. Oh,
Look at that.
fancy. Oh, look at this. From Russia with Love.
No, mirrored.
Other way, Matt. There you go. It's mirrored. So there you go. Yeah, From Russia with Love. Meet James Bond, his new incredible women, his incredible enemies, and his incredible adventure. And I'll just quickly add, I think that is the gist of what James Bond kind of was, especially in this time period. It was the action, the women, and the the gadgets, the
The
gadgetry or
adventure.
swashbuckler. Yeah, the
You
swashbuckling
know,
nature of it all.
I think the thing about James Bond is he was a character that men wanted to be, women wanted to be with, and kids wanted to go on his adventures. That's why
Yes.
it was so successful because it hit all demographics pretty equally.
And I think that's why, and we're getting to this one over now. From Russia with
Yeah.
Love, I like better than Doctor No, mainly based upon the fact that I
Okay.
feel like this has a kind of a little more going on in the sense of the kind of the espionage. Has a little more of the espionage that we see him trying to the as an MI6 agent. We also get the idea of Spectre. Like Spectre was mentioned in Doctor
Spectre
No,
was
right?
mentioned. Doctor No works for Spectre. Oh god, I always screw up.
Yes,
Spectra. It's Spectre.
Spectre.
Yeah, it's mentioned he does work for them, but I think that was something with the rights issue, if I'm not mistaken, that they couldn't really like Blofeld couldn't be mentioned. Like I think you can mention, but
Mm,
that's why I think the Hydra doesn't appear anywhere in Doctor No. I think it's because of all the
got
rights
you.
issues and
Okay.
everything. I believe. Don't quote me on that, people.
Well, what I was going to say is I think that this is like, this is kind of really I think I like this one a lot more because he's like called on a mission just like he was in Jamaica. And he's called upon he's been called to help someone who wants to defect from or to the west from Russia. And the fact that we get kind of like um uh, um this kind of world that's outside of just like Jamaica, because we really kind of got an island and a couple of places. I feel like we get a little bit more here in Russia with love, and like who doesn't love the entire Orient Express exchange that happens near the very end when that entire
Yeah,
fight scene transpires. Like that's one of
so
my
good.
favorites. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think this movie is certainly far more espionage than the last one. There's obviously the whole thing with the briefcase.
Yes.
There's, making the contacts and doing all of that. There's espionage on Spectre's side with Robert Shaw. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I agree. Which
Oh,
for
Sean.
those of you who do not pay attention, yes, Quint from Jaws is the big
That's
blonde dude who was trying to kill James Bond in this movie.
it's bizarre, honestly, when I
It
make that
is because
comparison.
and this movie's what 63,
63, yeah.
so it's like a little bit 10 years later. He's doing the
Yeah.
Indianapolis speech. I mean, it shows you how good of an actor he is for certain.
I know, right?
Yeah,
And it's like I also it's interesting to me because like and obviously his character Red is not exactly, you know, the most complex, as I've used the term before,
yeah,
character of all time. He is I guess at the end of the day, he is the blueprint for all the goons that we kind of see that are sent to take out Bond.
yeah. You can see like Odd Job in there. You can even see a little bit because he's a spy as well. You can see a little bit of Alec Trevelyan in there. Maybe there's a lot of you. Again, we're probably be saying this through. I think particularly through Connery's first three, they were all laying the groundwork that the other Bond movies would pull from later on.
Yes. Now, what I will add is that this has the same issue where it's like we have this wonderful kind of like ending near the express and then like
Oh, what
did
the
they
fourth act?
say that again?
The fourth act, most action movies, like most movies, it's three acts, but then some
Oh,
decide to
yeah.
extend into a fourth act. Some
Yes.
movies, like Alien and Aliens, do this very well, and other movies don't quite succeed. And I love From
Yes.
Russia with Love, but
Yes.
I think you
This
could
is
have
its
ended it a little bit earlier, and
and
it
that's the
would have been
one
just as good.
critique. One critique I have for the film, well, there's some like miniature critiques. The
Yeah,
entire gypsy thing is kind of problematic, especially with how they treat the women in the gypsy thing, where they're literally
not
fighting
as
for
bad as
him.
some other movies we'll talk
No, we'll
about.
get to that. Yes, but still, it's a different kind of bad. It's not does not age well in the slightest, and it's
No,
very sexist.
yes,
Um,
very
but
sexist.
but kind of that aside, there is the action in Russia with Love kind of is thrown up. Doc, that's why I say the blueprint. Russia with Love improves a lot of the aspects that we see when it comes
Yeah,
to the action. It really pumps it up. It's like we need to turn it up to an 11. What's that from Spinal Tap?
yeah. This is Spinal Tap. Yeah, but this
Uh,
this amp goes to 11.
There you go. That's exactly. I can't remember the name. I can't remember the line, but
Yeah,
this is what Russia with Love, from Russia with Love does really well, especially with that, like the entire train sequence.
it's my
Um,
favorite part of the movie. It's
it's
so
great.
good. Well, because you get the first thing, you get Bond and the Bond girl's name, who's escaping me right now from this film. You
It
get
is
them, and
Romanov.
yeah, and and her whole thing is she's supposed to fall in love with Bond. I like that little joking around that they're having to pretend to be a married couple, and he gives her
Yes,
her engagement ring. Like I think that's how cute. And I think Connery plays it really well. I like when Robert Shaw when Red right? What's his
Red.
name? Yeah, Red.
The Robert Shaw? Yeah, Red.
Yeah, Robert Shaw. Yeah. Red shows up, and I like how at first he thinks he's playing Bond, but Bond kind of knows that something's up, and then it all leads into the great sort of, which is very enclosed fight. But I kind
Yes.
of like that. It's very enclosed. It's
Yes.
very, and it's just, Connery just, and what I think, it's funny because for another thing I'm doing, I'm been having to watch a lot of Steven Seagal movies recently.
Oh, wow.
This will make sense. So in a Steven Seagal movie, Seagal, when he walks into the room, is always the top guy, and he's just gonna judo
Nice.
flip guy. What I like about James Bond, and particularly Connery gets the crap kicked out of him in this fight, and
Yep.
he kind of only barely beats Red. And I like that. I like the fact that, we know Bond is going to come out of this. We know that
Mhm.
this movie is not going to end with James Bond being killed. But it's sometimes nice to, when Bond, we do see the struggle, because he is a guy. He is just a man. And I think that whole fight really does that really well in the train car.
Yeah, and I will also add, train car aside, I also think that a lot of this espionage stuff we see at the beginning in regards to like him spying on like some of the other, I guess they're Spectre, probably on
Yeah,
the Spectre
Spectre. Yeah.
individuals over there.
Well,
Like,
because this is the first time we see Blofeld.
yeah, oh yeah, we do. For wait, see Blofeld, but like
Yeah, we see his
regardless,
hand with the ring and the cat.
yes, and then him telling his number 3, number 4, whatever the
Yeah,
different
if
numbers that
you're an
were
Austin
there.
Powers fan, this is where like so many jokes from Austin Powers come from this
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, oh yeah.
Number 2,
Uh,
number 3.
Yes, and I think that that's really cool how they incorporate that and using some of the the different MI6 branches that are within the city and seeing the network that we have. It's not just like, oh, the people from the town are helping them out. There's a network, and we see kind of that come into play. That's why I really like Russia with Love in comparison to some of the other ones that we have there. It's not my favorite, but it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's really good. Like I really can't say too much insanely more, because sometimes when you have movies that are just like really solid movies, it's like talking about the original Star Wars. It's like, how many
Hmm.
more times can you say this is just a great blockbuster? Like, you can only say it's good in so many ways. From Russia with Love is a good movie, but
Yes.
they really doubled down and just knocked it out of the park with the next one.
Oh yes. Oh, take it away.
Uh, yeah, Goldfinger, like it is
What is this?
everything. Yeah, no, James Bond is back, and every touches turns to excitement. This
So
movie,
stupid. I love it.
in every way, this is the James Bond
Yes.
that everyone knows and loves. I mean, this is the first Bond movie to have the opening titles with the film accompanying song, because From Russia with Love song is only played at the end of the movie.
Yes.
Uh this is really, there's the briefcase obviously in From Russia with Love, but this is really where Q Branch becomes a real true thing. This is the Aston Martin. This is the big
Yes.
bad and
Oh,
the henchmen. Everything comes from this movie, and there are some movies like this that you go, can it really be that good? And it is.
it is.
I adore this movie. This movie has the distinction of being, I swear, and I said this because this happened again, the only James Bond movie I swear I'm ever watching when my parents come home and I'm in the middle of a James Bond movie. It is always Goldfinger I'm watching. Like, I mean, there have been times where I'm just channel surfing and it's on like BBC America, and I'll just watch it even though I own it, and my parents will come home and it's on.
Yeah.
Or like this, I was watching it, and it is a movie that my parents every time will just sit down and watch it with me, and that doesn't happen a lot, and I think that says something about the type of movie it is, that it's just like peak perfection of this franchise. And I think Guy Hamilton sort of came in and just, I think I think Terrence Young did a great job, and obviously he would come back
Absolutely.
for Thunderball, but I think Guy Hamilton was the perfect just sort of breath of fresh air. I don't think is the perfect analogy, but I think just he offered a new perspective, and I think that was great. And Manning, I want to hear your thoughts on this because I'm obviously like, I don't want to say I'm conditioned, but like Goldfinger in a lot of ways is like Empire Strikes Back when it comes to Star Wars. It's kind of just a movie that's like either the top of the list or near the top of the list. But for newer people, they sometimes go, is it just because everyone says it's that good, or is it that good? So Manning, is Goldfinger
Yeah.
that good?
It is that good. It is that good. It is probably no surprise to what everyone, and I'm sure it's probably going to be yours as well too. It's my favorite so far of the Sean Connery, no Sean Connery era.
What the hell
Um,
kind of name is that?
John Connery. It's like John, but
That's his
Sean with
father.
John. It's John Connery.
Sean
Um,
Connery.
and I really think that, like, a few nitpicks aside, this is, like, to me, like, a Bond film that I can watch back and it's in my top 5 in general because Goldfinger has, like, it all. It has a great villain, probably one of my favorite villains that we have
Yeah.
had because they literally unlike the other two, they literally introduce him at the very well, they introduce him at the beginning, and then they have him weave throughout
Yeah.
the entire movie. They let him have like an actual Goldfinger, obviously. Let him have kind of not an arc, but they kind of get you understanding his character, his kind of idiosyncrasies, his ridiculousness. Yes, he was dubbed over, and I noticed that kind of right off. I'm like, wait a minute, is that not his real voice?
Yeah.
Is it? But you know what? I'll let that slip by. That's kind of like at the time. There is video out there of the original actor who actually plays um
Auric
Auric
Goldfinger.
Goldfinger.
I
Auric
just call him
Goldfinger.
Goldfinger. I never say. I can
Same.
never pronounce his first name.
Yeah. His the actual funnily fact, Orson Welles was considered for Goldfinger, but his financial demands were too high.
It wouldn't have
Um,
worked because it would have been Orson Welles.
but I would have loved to have seen it regardless. But
I
no, for
but
what we
he would
had,
have. But Orson Welles at that time, he would have been prima donna Orson Welles. He
you're
wouldn't
right.
have wanted to
Oh,
come out of his trailer.
sure.
He probably would have tried to
Absolutely.
punch Sean Connery, and Sean Connery would have gladly punched Orson Welles back.
Yes, I agree.
Although that,
And
come to think of it, that would have been fun behind the scenes stories to be talking about right now.
oh, it'd be a great behind the scenes stories. But Gert Frobe, I can't pronounce it. Or Gert Frobe, I'm not positive, who plays Eric Goldfinger, does such a charismatic job. And even with he's redubbed by Michael Collins, the TV actor, they both do a great job with what they are given. And what they are given is kind of a very over the top, but kind of like a very he is it's like he is a villain who seems you could totally see he exists in the real world. He's not too over the top. He's not someone who has mechanical arms or like jaws where he can bite things. Like
Yeah.
he is someone who is like he has money,
He's
and that
over
is
the
his
top,
biggest.
but he's a believable over the top. He's like, I
Yes,
can believe that there is a guy who is rich and powerful and loves gold and wants to have
yep,
the ultimate supply of it. It's over the top, but it's more when you talk about James Bond, it's more based in
but
reality
yes,
than some of his other
ironically.
villains. I will agree with that. Like comparing him to like Blofeld, he's way more based in reality than Blofeld is.
Agreed. And I think that Goldfinger is one of my favorites. He's just so obsessed with like gold, but it makes completely sense. I really also enjoy just kind of odd job, as questionable as maybe like the idea of having a man servant, quote unquote, at the time period. I'm not sure, like, because it says he's an official manservant, so I'm kind of over there as like, is that like I don't know if that's the racism at the time, but I don't know. What's your take upon that? Because I know I've heard people say like, "Oh, it's just kind of
I've
like,
never
you know."
thought of it because man's like Goldfinger's like super rich, and it's no different than like the freaking like family in Mary Poppins had like a butler as well. Like it
No,
was
true.
just
I
like a
guess just
thing of
the
the era, so I never
no,
really
no.
thought
You're right.
anything of it. And he's
I
such a
guess
cool. I mean, he's
he's a great,
iconic.
so cool. He
His
is
hat is so
absolutely
iconic, and the fight he has with Bond is so great. And talking about when we talked about Doctor No, I like the fact that Bond gets to fight with
Yes.
Oddjob, but then he gets the fisticuffs on the plane with Goldfinger as well. It's not just Oddjob he gets the fight with. And I do like this sort of twist-ish of Goldfinger's plan to where Bond sort of thinks that he wants to just steal the gold, and then it's no, he wants to blow up Fort
Yes.
Knox because I guess if Fort Knox is destroyed, then his gold
Okay,
becomes
yeah.
more
Remember, don't forget the
sure.
more gold. Well, yeah, no, because the more gold, the less gold there is in the world, and the gold standard is a thing. Then
Okay.
you're basically going to house the
See,
only
me
gold
and
in the world.
math never like
Ah,
slapped together. Like
that's all right.
my whole understanding of like that stuff comes from Die Hard with a Vengeance. So and I don't know how based in reality that
Yes,
film is. So, but yeah, but I do like that twist, and particularly the twist within that twist, to where Goldfinger thinks his plan is successful, but then, no, Bond and the army are on top of them because of the help of a character whose name is certainly not PC in today's standard, but the character is certainly great, which
yes.
is Pussy Galore. I must be
Still
dreaming.
strange.
I still love that scene. So perfect. But yeah, she is, and I've saying this to Manning before we started.
Yes.
She can stand up to Bond girls of Craig's era. She was, this movie is 64, 5? Was it?
60. This one's 65.
65.
64, 64, 64. No,
Yeah,
excuse me,
64.
64.
Okay. She is so ahead of her time compared to not just in other Bond movies.
Agreed.
Obviously, she is leagues that have the two in the previous entry, but like even just the female characters that there were of the time, she's she's a pilot. She's the head of this thing. She gives crap to James Bond right back at him from the very
Yeah,
start, and it's great. And she, in a lot of ways, you can kind of say she's sort of the hero of this movie because if she didn't help out Bond, they'd be screwed. Like if she didn't make the changes, the plan would have went ahead and there's nothing Bond could have done about it. And I
agreed.
like that.
No, no, I think she is, despite the double entendre of a name, like she has to me the singular best like role in because we actually feel like we're getting to like know her. And she's also not this she's not the typical like, oh, I'm just this woman who has no agency. She has
Yeah.
agency for what she does. She actually working and doing something, and it is the like complete like the complete like opposite of what you have with even just like the honey rider who was
Yeah.
literally just there because she's like, oh, I'm up here on the beach, I'm just here. No, this one, she actually has a reason to be here, actually working and actually turning on Goldfinger. And despite a name like Pussy Galore, that is she is literally a just a fantastic character and a great foil to James Bond. Like while at the end of the day, they fall madly in lust and they must go to the hay. What is it? Is it like isn't
They're
like a
in the
barn
stable.
or something?
They're in
The
the
stable.
stables
Thank
looking
you.
at the horses. Yeah.
Yeah. But like it's still like to me one of the better I'm not saying it's perfect, but one of the better relationships shown with Bond and the quote unquote Bond girls.
And
Um,
and what's cool in this movie, and obviously this is meaningless nowadays, but I think when this movie came out, I think it was particularly cool that like you have two kind of fake out Bond girls, at the
yes.
beginning, the sisters, and I like that because you kind of think, particularly with the sister, you think that like, oh, she's
Yes.
gonna be the Bond girl because they have this meeting scene and then they're going on the adventure together, but then she just gets killed. Uh, and I'm
Shocking,
sure in
honestly.
64, I'm sure audiences were like, "Wait, they killed the Bond girl? Like before like what?" And then we find out that's because she was not the Bond girl. And by the way, if you paint a girl fully gold, she does not die. It's a fake thing they made up for the movie. But like standing still in front of a
No.
T-Rex that can't see you in Jurassic Park, the logic for the film works.
Skin suffocation, Matt. Skin
Yeah,
suffocation.
I mean, they
No.
sell it, and it's
They do sell it.
It
It's
doesn't
not.
look like real gold, it looks like paint, so
It
it
does
doesn't
look
look
like
like she
paint.
should be dead, but hey, still, I mean,
It's a
the
great
mo
opening.
I think
The
what we're doing right now is we're just nitpicking because
Oh,
again,
of course.
that's such a great movie, we're just picking at things to make jokes and talking
And
about the beginning. Shirley Bassett's theme,
yes.
it's not my favorite,
Goldfinger.
but it is
No,
so good,
it
and it
is.
is again, is the first time we've had an opening credits or title sequence for Bond with the song and sort of the melding of them together, which that's always the thing. That's the reason why, even though they released the song well before the movie because of all the delays, I didn't listen to No Time to Die until I saw the movie because Bond openings and their themes since this film go together and it's
Yeah.
great. And I have a question for you,
Yes.
a little bit of trivia. Did you notice that they use a previous Bond film's footage for one moment in the opening of this film?
No.
There's a quick shot of Bond from Russia with Love when he has the briefcase and his fedora and the helicopter and he sort of spins out of the way of it. It's a quick shot in the
Huh.
opening. I don't know. I guess they didn't have enough footage when they were making this. It's the most
Interesting.
random thing ever. It's just a quick
Yeah.
clip of From Russia with Love. I assume it has to be when they were making the title sequence. They didn't have the entire movie and they were just like,
Yeah.
we need to fill a moment here. Yeah, just throw this moment from Russia with
Oh,
Love on there.
wow. I missed that
It goes by
completely.
really fast. A lot of people don't notice it, but it's just a fun little. Just watch the opening,
That
you'll
is
see it.
cool thing.
It's the quick moment where he just sort of spins out of the way.
One thing I will also add is I think this was the first time that we actually had I think that this was the best that we've had yet with Q, where I'm pretty sure this was the first time where we actually had, like, an extended moment where he gives him the Aston Martin, where it feels like there is a tongue-in-cheek kind of, back and forth with the 2 of them that they had. Not
It's
saying
the
they didn't have it beforehand, but
it's the first time you feel that there's a relationship between the 2 of them, like, you
yes.
feel like, "Oh, Bond and Q have been working together since he started in MI6." It's great,
Yes.
the Walter PP
And
well, the Aston Martin obviously is, like,
oh, it's iconic.
it is the Bond car. There are Bond cars that are cool, but, I mean, look, it comes back um in GoldenEye, it comes back in Skyfall and in
Back in No
No
Time to
Time to
Die,
Die. Like, it is the classic Bond car.
of course. And
Eh,
nothing else can replace it at this point in my
yeah, no,
mind.
no. There's cool ones, but nothing will ever compare to that.
Yes, completely agree. Completely agree. And yeah, I think that's also Moneypenny. I feel like we get a little more with her. Wait, is this the first? This was not the first with Moneypenny. That
No,
was from
Moneypenny's in
Rush.
all of them.
Yeah, I was about
Moneypenny
to
is
say.
in
Wait a minute.
all the movies.
See, that's funny because I barely remembered her in like some of the other ones. I think she had a good scene in for Doctor No. I can't recall 'cause again. I haven't seen that one in a
Yeah,
bit.
well, Doctor No, that's the
Um,
first time that Bond throws his hat onto
yep.
the coat
Okay.
hanger, and they have and that's the thing is Moneypenny, I think particularly in Connery to Moore, she represents this life that James Bond's never gonna have.
Yes.
Like, this life to where he's never gonna settle down with her and sort of retire and everything, like,
Oh, that's
but
yeah.
she's always there, like, because she's in love with Bond. So,
Oh
she's
yeah.
always there, and it's
I'll
nice.
take that
It's
away.
there's always the fun playfulness between the 2 of them that, M always is listening into and interrupting, which is great too. I love all those moments, but yeah, she's in all of them.
Okay, because I couldn't remember if she was in Doctor No or whatnot.
Yeah,
Um,
she's just there for the one scene in that, though.
okay, that's why I couldn't remember. There also Felix Leiter was also great in this one. I think this was his best that we've had him yet.
Yeah.
But I love Felix. He's a great foil to the kind of slightly maybe not as suave agent from the
Well,
CIA.
he's the American,
Exactly.
he's an American, and it's funny, obviously, because these movies are made by the Brits and the Europeans. Felix is in
Yeah.
many ways their take on what an
Hmm.
American operative is. which
Yes.
you can sort of argue is maybe why Tom Clancy decided he had to write Jack Ryan, because he's
Ha!
like, we can't have Felix representing us. We need to
Yeah,
have
and
our own.
like again, he's not exactly the only. He's not exactly. He's not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed in almost any of his movies. He's always trying to be Bond's helping him. Bond's tagging him along.
Well,
Um,
he's helping Bond out. Like, that's always the
well,
thing, is Felix is always
yes.
there
Oh
to
yeah,
give
he's a good guy.
assistance to Bond. Like, he's kind of like, he's trying to think of a good sort of like, he's like if you're playing a video game, and you're doing one of those team
Yeah.
things. Felix is like the healer, like he's the guy who's just there to
Yes.
give you the energy boost when you need it.
Love those
There are
people.
movies to where we'll talk about later on to where he has far more agency to the plot. Um, ones like License to Kill, for one, he's like a major character in that. Um, but for the most part, even in Casino Royale, he's just there to stake Bond back into the game. Like,
Yes.
Felix is usually just there. He's just he's there to give some
He's just
moral
there.
support.
He
He's
is
there to give some
there.
moral support to Bond.
Yeah, he is there to be like, Bond, we need you back. We need you to do this, or this is your mission. Hey, the CIA is doing this. We need your help to do X, Y, and Z because Bond, you're my friend.
Yeah,
Not really. He didn't say that part,
no,
but
not really.
anyway, so that is Goldfinger, unless you have something else to add.
No, there's really just, if you haven't watched it, watch it.
Yeah, Goldfinger is great. But Goldfinger, those are the first three in the Sean Connery era. We have another fantastic entry into all of this, and that is quick thought. Goldfinger was the first Bond film to win an Oscar. That was for best sound editing. There you go.
Yeah.
Had to throw that in there. All right, but Thunderball became the next big one in the James Bond franchise.
Yes.
So, Matt, what are your thoughts on Thunderball?
So I like Thunderball, but there are also parts I don't like about Thunderball.
Go on.
I think there's a lot of cool things in this movie. I think all the underwater stuff, particularly from what he
Yes,
did, was really
so good.
cool.
The
But
filming was immaculate.
yeah, no, it's awesome. And again, you give credit. I mean, it has one of my all-time favorite Bond moments, which is he's laying on the beach with the girl. The guy's coming up. He turns around with the spear. I think he got the point. Like, it's just, I love that moment.
Yeah.
But there, the section to where he gets trapped by the lady and the whole Mardi Gras thing and everything, it goes on a little bit too long, and it ultimately
Yeah.
ends with him just getting captured again. So it's like,
Yeah, that makes sense.
it's kind of like when we did the Clone Wars retrospective, when we talked about that episode to where Ahsoka starts off in prison, breaks out, and then at the end of the episode, she's in prison again. So you're like, well, what was the point of that? Like, I get it's to show how cool Bond is, but it's like, he just gets captured again. But I love it. I think it's great. I think, obviously Spectre comes back again.
Oh, of course.
Blofeld.
Largo.
I'm sorry?
Oh, we get Largo.
Yeah, we got Largo, which, again, he's a very famous, the eye patch, everything. He's, he's great. That moment between them at the poker table, I thought I saw a Spectre. And he kind of looks at him. He's like, oh, well, you're losing. And you're like, oh, you love it because he's like, he's playing him. He's just like, I know who you are, you son of a bitch.
That's him. That's James Bond, all right. That's what he would do.
It's I had a lot of fun. I haven't watched this one in a hot minute, but this is certainly one that I think I'm gonna try to put back into my rotation because, especially the whole underwater stuff, like I said, it's so dang cool for 67. It's 8.
No, this one was done in this was a 65.
Yeah, 65. Okay.
Which is weird because they literally had it year back to back to back, which is like,
it just shows you how good British production teams are.
They cranked those out.
Yeah, and this was Terrence Young coming back again. He did the first two, and Guy Hamilton came in. They brought him back. But what do you think about this movie, Manny? I feel like I've babbled on enough about my
No,
thoughts on
you have
Thunderball.
not. I really actually enjoy Thunderball. Like the Mardi Gras going through that. I don't know. I find it to be a very like maybe not that entire scene, but like maybe I'm a sucker for the Bahamas, but the Bahamas is a great like area that it,
Manny planned his vacation after he watched this
I
movie.
wonder. Oh, yes. No, but I think that this is actually a really fun. I think the ideas of kind of like the shark underneath the water. Obviously, that's another classic right there that we have. I think Largo, while not as good as Goldfinger, I think Largo might be my second favorite that we have
Hmm.
seen so far. I'm not counting Blofeld. Blofeld's like another because he has had so many interpretations. I don't
He's like
count
the
him.
emperor. He's just the
Yeah.
overall evil.
Yeah. But looking from Goldfinger to Largo, I think Largo is still a great foil to Bond.
Yeah,
Another voice dub because at this point now they
why not?
really why not? Nowadays that would not be you could not get away with that. You would
I
just
don't know.
yeah, you could no get away with that in the sense of like people would be like, I feel like they'd be the wiser than that. You know what I mean? Like maybe they noticed back then, but I think nowadays people would be like, hold on, that sounds weird. Like, I don't know. As an audience, I'm not sure how receptive we
I
would
mean, it
be.
depends on how could you edit the audio.
True, but
I
I
mean,
feel
to
like you
be
would
perfectly honest with you, I didn't know his voice was dubbed over. Like, to
really
be perfectly
okay.
honest. But then again,
Yeah.
I'm also the guy who doesn't really recognize Superman's mustache in Justice League 2017. So,
Really?
yeah.
Oh wow,
So
okay.
maybe I'm just wired differently than literally, and that's where we lose half of the viewers for
That's
me right there.
fine.
Maybe I'm just wired differently with movies. You know what it was? I was
It's
so
fine.
wrapped up in the greatness of this Bond adventure. My
Yes.
ears didn't want me to know.
No, this I think is probably one of the best shot Bond films in the sense that the
Easily.
fact they're having these underwater like battles to me is honestly really really cool. And not really I don't know if any other Bond film has had that much underwater scenes since then. And
I
honestly,
don't
I
think
I
so.
think and
Like,
I
they've had scenes, but I can't think of
yeah,
another Bond movie that
scenes.
is so based around, like, the
Yeah.
ocean.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we also get the iconic romper that Sean Connery wears as James Bond in this, where he has the harpoon. You remember that's the harpoon scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm about to say I said this out loud. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's the harpoon scene.
Yeah.
Um, and I genuinely think that this is probably one of the most adventurous, is like fun, exotic. Even though we went to Jamaica, this one feels like Bond's going to go to the Bahamas and he's going to find these two stolen nuclear. Uh,
I think it's
um,
I think it's more on a grander scale. It feels
yeah,
grander than Doctor No did. Like, it
yes.
feels like a much more grand adventure.
I also love well Largo is good, Volpe, the assassin. The fact that we
Hmm.
actually have a legit female assassin too. And yes, she tries to seduce him, but also
Yeah.
kill him at the same time. Also, a really dark way to just kind of like go while they're in the middle of dancing and she just dies because she
Yeah.
takes the bullet. I'm like, oh,
Is this
okay.
I can't remember because again, I watched the movies literally back to back.
Yeah.
Is this a movie where he has the great line where he's like, "Don't think I took any pleasure with what I did last night. What I did last night was for king and country." Was that this movie or is
Oh
that the next
God.
one?
Um, mm, no, I think it was I
Someone
think it's
correct
this
us in the
one.
comments.
There's someone please correct. I think it is this one, if I'm not
Because
mistaken.
I love
Because
that line. And I love because that is Bond. He's just like, all right, look, I have to make love to this beautiful woman, but it's for work totally.
for
Like, that's
work,
his
it's for
logic
work, y'all.
standpoint there. But yeah,
Oh
it's
man.
great. And I think I think to where Dr. No was a very straightforward adventure. Like I said, this
Yes.
is taking that on a far grander scale. Again, it's another tropical island setting, but I think all the underwater stuff they add with it is great. You know, obviously there's the sharks, which of course the man-eating sharks that they show near the beginning, they throw the poor guy into, and then there's the great moment of
Yeah.
they're opening the door and Bond's trapped down there and he's got to stay real still because they've been trained to attack at the how you train a shark that has no ears to attack at the sound of people screaming? I don't know.
That's a
But they
great question.
found
I
out
didn't
a
think about
way.
that.
Yeah, no, that's
Huh.
at the beginning. They're like, they've been trained to attack at the sound of a human screaming. And I'm like, how do you, sharks
Huh.
don't have ears? How do you do that?
Well, I didn't know that.
Also, yeah, just look again. Unfortunately, Austin Powers just comes into my mind because all I'm thinking about is I want sharks with freaking lasers on their
lasers.
head.
That's
And
another
again,
great.
this
That's another
is
great scene.
number 2 in the Austin Powers movies. Is based upon the villain in this movie with the eye patch and everything. It's all
Yes. I think Domino. We didn't talk about Domino a lot, all that much either.
no,
The
we didn't.
Bond girl. Which I think she's fine. I don't think
She's
there's anything
she has a
special.
little bit more agency because, of course, the stuff with her
Her
brother and
brother.
everything.
Yes.
She has a, but she's not on the level of Miss Galore.
No,
Yeah,
she is
but
better.
she has more agency than like again. Honey Rider
Honey
is
Rider
probably the
is
worst because Honey Rider
yes.
just is in the randomly in the same place as Bond.
Yes, she
Whereas,
literally is.
yeah, she has more. She has a more emotional,
They didn't
kind of,
try.
yeah.
They didn't try.
Did not
But
try with her, but they tried here in Thunderbolt.
yes, agreed. And again, I love anything with how many has Bernard Lee done at this point for as being M? I'm trying to
And
recall.
he's been in all of them since the first one.
No, like is Bernard Hill is how long did he portray M? I'm trying to recall because he's been another consistent like. I mean, Felix Leiter is replaced every single Bond.
Yeah,
But like,
Felix. It's kind of
yeah,
funny.
it's really kind of like
It's
it's the
jarring because when he shows up, Bond always has to be like, "Oh, it's my old friend Felix." You see, everybody, because this is Felix. Because you're like, that
yep,
doesn't look
yep,
anything like Felix,
mm-hmm,
which is so
mm-hmm.
weird because you have M is the same in all the movies, Q is the same, Moneypenny is for some reason they could not nail down an actor who could return
No,
as Felix. I don't know
yeah.
why.
Yeah, and I think Bernard Lee does a really good job of playing that disgusted, like, Bond doing this again. Like, we need you, Bond, because you are the best, but I don't agree with what you do. He plays that really well
Yeah.
as the not the regal, but more like the uppity, like the career man. You know what I mean? Like the traditional career
Yeah,
worker
like the
who
whole
knows what he
scene when
does.
all the double O's have been called in and he walks in late and everything. It's like, oh well, now we can begin.
Yes.
That 007 is here. It's like if you weren't so good, you would be fired, but you
Oh
are
yes.
that good, so you're still here.
No, I completely agree. And I do enjoy what he brings to the role. It is a sense of just kind of like, okay,
Yeah,
he's been in this for a while, and you can tell. I'm trying to think anything else we want to add about Thunderball because again, I think Spectre has been the main villain. Like we've every single one we've had so far has been about Spectre, besides Goldfinger,
yeah.
ironically.
Goldfinger is the only one to where Spectre isn't involved at all.
Ironically,
They
and it's my favorite. That doesn't mean anything. I will say
no,
that. It just
yeah.
happened to be
Spectre is the
happenstance.
big sort of it's the big sort of
Yes.
overbearing evil that sort of extends to all the movies barring one
I agree
movie.
completely. But which one then comes next?
Then we are taught a lesson that is not true, that you only live twice. Oh, that's the poster you have. Did you
Yes.
specifically choose that one and not the other one?
No, I just picked the first one I saw. So what
Oh,
is the
okay.
other one?
The other one is Bond in the bath with all the women. And they're all watching him. Yeah.
Man, those also, can we just appreciate the fact? Look at this. Look at this. He is doing the same exact Bond pose he does in every single one. They just tilted it. Seriously, they just tilted it.
Why not?
Come on, guys.
But you don't need to change perfection sometimes.
No, you're right. You're right. What's your thoughts?
All right. So
Because
I'm
you had a hot
someone.
take.
Okay. Stop. Okay. So there is a long history on this channel with me and Kristen Smith talking about the Sean Connery era of films. How she feels they are very problematic, and that's why she cannot watch them. She does not like them. And I tried to defend them. Now I have not watched this movie in a hot minute. I can't defend this movie not being problematic.
No.
There's cool things in it,
Oh, of course.
but there's a lot of none. And look, this is even like this is like this shouldn't have been right at the time, but they accepted it. I will say there are some good things in this. I think this is the best Blofeld is in this movie, which is Donald Pleasance. Because Donald Pleasance is just awesome. Yeah, I mean he's Halloween, THX 1138, which I haven't seen, but I've seen clips of. Uh, he's just one of those great voices. Are you
Mhm.
fact checking me? That's Donald Pleasance.
I'm double checking. For some reason, I thought he was. For some reason, I thought Charles Gray was Donald Pleasance for a second, and I'm like, wait a minute, no, but no, you're right.
No, because again, believe me, I could have been wrong. I was like, I believe it
There's a
is
lot.
this one to where he's bald, and to where allow me
Yes.
to introduce myself, Mister Bond. Oh, hello. Um.
Yes.
So again, I don't want to say because it wasn't true. I didn't feel like uncomfortable watching this movie because I think this movie it's one of those examples of this shouldn't have been culturally acceptable at the time, but it
No, it shouldn't have.
was. I think it's also very clear with how very much this movie focuses on the fact that Bond is a commander in the Navy. This movie makes that a very clear from the beginning of the film that he is a commander in the Navy. You know, M is in his admiral uniform, and Moneypenny they're working on the sub. I feel like we talked about these movies being made during the Cold War. I feel like this was a very like Cold War centric movie, which is maybe why the treatment of the Asian Pacific people is not the best.
No.
Um, However, there's still a lot of really cool things in this movie. Connery is still obviously he's great. The entire ending is one of the best set pieces that they've
Yes.
ever done, and I like the fact that they make a real good sense of agency in this film, with the rockets and everything, and the fact that there are moments to where you're like, is Bond even going to be able to do this? Like, can he? Like,
Yeah.
I know he will, but how will he? Manning, I think is this a movie you have hot takes on, or I don't
Uh,
know.
no, this is the thing where this is like far down as one of my least favorite. I mean, obviously, it's incredibly problematic, which I got so excited for the fact that we were like, oh, awesome, we are going to go to Japan. He's going to do some really awesome things in the sense of like, we're going to see some really awesome set pieces, something different than what we've seen before with going to like the Bahamas, going to Russia.
Yeah,
Um, Something different. And from an aesthetic standpoint, you're right. At the very end, like that is one of the coolest set pieces in this entire franchise that we've had here. To the active volcano, scaling up the volcano, and then dropping down and trying to fight fire with fire. It is probably the biggest set piece, if I'm not mistaken. Even bigger than like you'd think Fort Knox would be bigger than it actually
yeah,
was, but it's
yeah.
not.
It's bigger than the Fort Knox sequence.
I
Yes.
know. And I utterly, completely adore this one. It is I adore this one. When I mean that, I mean I adore that final sequences.
Yeah, the
Blofeld
the
is great.
final act.
Donald
Yeah,
Pleasance is great with what he has. I again do wish that we had a little bit more with him, because he's another actor that changes every single
yeah,
time. Um, but it really just keep as it continues to go on, it just goes farther and farther off the rails until the point where James Bond is actually now in one of these Japanese villages and is now training to be a part of these 100 ninjas.
yeah.
It goes full stereotype, full racist, and
Look,
he
guys, Batman
becomes
Begins ripped off "You Only Live Twice," like just
it,
clearly.
without the racism.
Yeah,
Without
without
the
the
racism.
racism.
Without the racism. Also, Tiger Tanaka, um, um, like I think he's cool. The fact that we
Yeah,
actually have someone else who's not Felix Leiter from another organization, but
yeah. I don't
also
think Felix was gonna really work
no.
super well in
And
this movie.
like I just kind of over here like, oh, well, okay. And they just keep descending until he's like becomes this James Bond is literally the white savior of Japan. with this. He's the definition of the white savior, and he learns
Mm.
nothing from himself. He just does this, and while there are some cool set pieces, you're right. This one is definitely not great.
It's the one to where, again, like I said, there is clear evidence of me doing this on this channel. I
Yeah.
defend these movies. This is the one that if you like this movie, that's fine. I don't think anything lesser of you. But it's the one I can't defend to like. It's the one if someone is just like, I can't watch the Connery movie, like Kristen Smith, because they're too problematic.
Yeah.
I cannot convince you to watch this movie and not think that. Because
Yes.
the entire section to where we're like, we're gonna have to make you Asian.
Yes, that is incredibly
Nope.
that's where it like. Yeah, that's about it. Also, can we just say the fact that I forget her name because she's kind of incredibly forgettable. It's like, what's the name? Aki Akai Aki
I don't know.
do you remember who I'm talking about?
Yeah, the woman he marries.
No, that's Kissy Sukuzi.
Oh, okay. See, all these names just started
Exactly.
flying at me, and I was just like, and because I watched all these movies, literally, I'm like, is that from this one? For the ones that I'm not super familiar with, which is these latter three, it was difficult for me.
Yes, but no, what I'm gonna say, what I'm merely just saying is like, she dies beforehand, and then he marries this girl who comes out of nowhere.
Right, she's the one who was like Bond's like sort of not assistant, but sort of like the person helping him through to all this stuff. That's who you're talking about. Yeah, she dies when they do the poison. Yes, I know who you're talking about now. Yes.
And then they replace her halfway through to me with this other person who came out of nowhere, and it feels very much like, did she like have to leave the production, because it feels so sudden, the fact that they tried to replace her too, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, to me it makes no sense.
I mean,
don't
it
have a Bond
could be
girl.
they were trying another thing like Goldfinger, to where you think this is the Bond girl, but then she dies, and so it's like, oh no, no one's safe.
I mean, I get it, but like, there was actually, I feel like, you know, the fact that he and Aki were actually, I liked her. I liked the fact that we were getting a little bit more, and then they just kill her off and try to replace her with this other character I did not care about. And it's like, wow, okay,
well,
y'all
and the
really
unfortunate thing is she's
this.
not even really there enough to have, because she and Bond sort of like they get to the island, and then her main job is to just like go get help. Like, it's not even like she's even really able to have much of a character.
No, but she actually, like, in fact, that she feels like she has agency. In fact, she is actually assisting him in like escaping.
You would
like,
wish that
like,
she had more of a character. Yeah.
Oh,
no,
more. Yeah.
Right.
But and then they instead of trying to give her more, they literally just make this other character come out last minute, and that bugged me always, because it's just like, oh, that's weird. And it shows the problematicness of this entire, which sucks, because I really enjoy that last final fight sequence. And
I understand. This is probably one I'm not gonna watch anytime soon.
No, and I just watched it and I was like, wow, this is kind of unfortunate, because this could have been, this has so much promise to be really like a, international spy. This could have been a truly international spy film, but instead it just becomes kind of this really muddied, like offensive, just whitewashing and it's of the time, in the sense that, and it's 67, so like, I'm not exactly sure that people were as progressive about race as, in fact, that we are now. In fact, I'm certain that is the case.
Yeah. Again, it was culturally acceptable at the time. That doesn't mean it was a good thing.
Oh, no,
but
God, no.
I'm also someone who, I don't tend to put standards of our current day onto a movie from the past day. Like, obviously, I said this movie's problematic today, but like, I'm not gonna say that we should take every copy of this and burn it, and no child should ever watch this, because I think the other thing is, look, those who don't learn from their history are doomed to repeat it. You should watch this movie and you should be like, no, that has some cool stuff, but it's also really problematic. And isn't it good that Bond movies past this didn't really ever do this again?
We've learned.
Yes, it
They've
is.
learned. But yeah, we can definitely tell where that one's probably going to land on our list. But finally, we have one more.
Yes.
And one last one in this Sean Connery. Well, originally we have one in between this one, between You Only Live Twice and Diamonds Are
Diamonds Are
Forever.
Forever. Which we will talk about next month.
Exactly.
But yes, there was a film that happened called On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but Sean Connery, for reasons that I'm actually not quite offhand aware of, he did not return for. We'll do research and we'll find that out next month.
Yes.
But yes, Sean Connery made his return in 1971's Diamonds Are Forever. If I got the year right. Yeah. I got the year right.
In 1971, you are right. Diamonds Are Forever is one of those films. I will just start off by saying that it is a film that I was on board with for like the first little bit. I'm like, okay, cool. He's finding the real Blofeld. It's like I love it when we get right into a good action set piece, a la like Raiders of the Lost Ark. There is a good way to set this up. It's the same thing, the issues that I had with like You Only Live Twice, where I'm totally on board with what's going on. And as we get farther and farther, we introduce Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, who become kind of this. They start off to be interesting, and then they become this weird kind of caricatures of themselves. They're like, yes, Mr. Bond, yes. And I just,
yes, Mr. Kidd, yes.
And they're just always there, and it's just they annoy me. They annoy me so much. This film is more annoying than You Only Live Twice. You Only Live Twice is racist. This one's annoying.
And why isn't that on the Blu-ray box?
I don't know.
The last movie was more racist, but this one is more annoying. Frank's Gone with the Wind.
You hearing me right now? This one, I really just kept getting on my nerve the farther that we went into this, because I know that you liked. I know that you have said that you liked Tiffany, the Diamond Smuggler. Which, by the way, the first few scenes, I'm like, okay, some of the ideas of him being what's his name? Peter Franks, my last name.
Yeah.
That entire thing's cool. The fight sequence is actually really cool. I enjoy that immensely. Yet all that to say, Tiffany Case is probably the most annoying Bond girl, I think, personally. I cannot get past I cannot get past her voice. Like, she's over here being like, wow, what's going on?
I had fun with her. Here. I thought she was fun, man. I thought she was a fun Bond girl. She had agency, and she's the Diamond Smuggler and everything. I don't know. No, it's cool.
I get why she's there. I'm just don't like that she's there. She was not this.
Are you trying to say that Tiffany is Jar Jar Binks in Phantom Menace for you, man?
No, she's not. No, she's not. I have an affinity for Jar Jar Binks. I don't have an affinity for Tiffany Case.
Okay,
so
I have an affinity for both characters. So
understandable, but no, I just think I just do not care for her. I do like Jimmy Dean as Willard White. He's so ridiculous.
It's true. His whole thing.
He's a caricature of all American tycoons. It's like over here, like, I can't believe this.
What's going on down there? Huh? What's happening here? And the whole thing that he doesn't leave his penthouse. He has been seen in 5 years? Like, once you meet him, you're like, why? You feel like someone who would want to be seen by everybody.
And all that's to say, this is definitely the first Bond film where I was like, Sean Connery is definitely a lot older than he was.
Which it was his officially last. So in a way, it works that once he starts showing his age, he was like, it's best I get out of here. Unlike another Bond who, look, by the end, it looked like he could have broken into a couple pieces. Like when Bond is like, having love scenes with Tiffany, I'm like, okay, Sean Connery's still good looking, but like when we get to A View to a Kill, I'm just like, Roger Moore could be like Tanya Roberts, like father. This is weird. This at least I'm like, all right, he's older than her, but like he seems like the cool older grandpa. I messed up my words. He seems like the cool older uncle, not quite a grandpa in this movie. So it's still
Yeah.
kind of believable. And I have to
Oh
say,
yeah,
I
it is.
love and watching this again and doing the series. Obviously, I didn't watch Our Majesty's Secret Service yet. I'm saving
Yeah.
that. But watching the whole opening scene, I was like, I could definitely tell that they did it like that because it was Connery coming back. And so you don't see him, you just see him beating everyone up until
Yes.
he comes, my name's Bond, James. And I could hear a 1971 audience losing their minds because Sean
Yeah.
Connery came back. He's back.
Uh,
I could hear it. I could
yeah.
hear it.
No, I will also say that I do like him sneaking into the base. There's something kind of ridiculous and funny the way he can pull that off because again,
Mhm.
Sean Connery has charm to spare. It oozes out of every pore of his body. I completely buy that. It's when he gets into the fights the first time I'm kind of like, hold on, you are definitely getting older. That's the only time when I'm like, oh, okay, I can really see
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
I completely understand that.
So Sean Connery's age and Tiffany are things that don't work for you in this movie.
Well, it's the age is
Uh,
fine. I don't really mind about that. It's more just kinda like I noticed that, the
Yeah.
Wint and Kid don't work for me. I find them to be annoying.
Most
The
characters are just
one
annoying to you in this movie,
yeah,
aren't they?
yeah,
And
really,
look, I'll be
Money
perfectly
Penny has one
honest.
scene, and that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's like, "Huh, Mary, bring out a ring," and it's like, "You're just a joke." She's just really a joke at that in this movie. She's one joke.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's just I don't know.
And look,
Also,
oh
Bambi
yeah,
and
yeah, go.
Thumper. I'm
They're there.
sorry.
They're there.
Go on, please.
I have
Go
nothing
on.
to say on them. I have nothing.
I
They're,
like Charles
they're,
Gray. He's a good Blofeld. He's a good
yeah,
Blofeld.
no,
Not great.
he's good. Yeah, he's not as good as Donald Pleasance. I like Donald Pleasant a little more, but
Yes, I
he's
agree.
fine. And
He's
look,
not as menacing.
when we get to the whole thing at the end with the oil rig and everything, which might explain why I like Tiffany, because look, some boys when they were young, they saw Return of the Jedi, and things happened when they saw Princess Leia. For me, I was a
No,
young man watching Diamonds Are Forever with my father, and Tiffany showed up in that purple number, and things happened. So maybe it's just nostalgia. I
that
like
probably might
Tiffany.
be it because my first time I saw that, and I'm like, it hit me. I'm over here like, wow, people are right when they kind of say the early Bonds are kind of sexist. I get it. I really do because
Yeah.
her scene wow, or even the like listen, this entire movie and the treatment of her character, I feel like is probably the most egregious where they were like, well, let me rephrase that. She has agency, yes, but again, she kind of just walks her way around this movie as a literal damsel, as like it's like the
Hmm.
bookend. Honey Rider and her to me are the worst offenders, and they're the
Okay.
bookends of Sean
She's
Connery's
not my
entire
favorite. I'm just saying. I can't.
I understand.
I
No, I
have
get it.
many
I
thanks to
understand.
that actress, and the wardrobe department. Thank you guys.
Any thoughts you have on this movie besides Tiffany Chase?
Um,
Case,
I
excuse
think
me.
the whole car chase is awesome. Going
Oh,
through the
yeah!
strip, I
That's
think that
great.
is awesome. And again, going back to
Car
saying
chase is
Batman
great.
Begins, ripped off the whole Bond train with the ninjas. Dude, that whole moment when they're on the top of the parking thing and Bond's able to just sort of jump off the ramp, I'm like, they literally do that in Batman Begins.
Oh, yes.
Um, so Chris Nolan, what are you doing? You
James
watching a
Bond? Of
lot of Bond
course he
movies before you
is.
made
Of
those
course
films?
he is.
Um, I I really like this movie. I think Connery, I th- and just knowing who Connery was in real life, I can kind of feel like, whatever happened, he didn't come back for the last one. And then I have a feeling he didn't even see it, but he was like, someone tried to take my role. I gotta take it back. And he did. And he was
Same. Yeah.
awesome. Yes, he's starting to show his age, but he's still cool. I think this is a dumb fun movie, but
Yes.
I think I have again, I talk about it and I do joke about the stuff with Tiff. I think it's more just I remember watching this movie with my dad.
Yeah.
And so I have a little bit more nostalgia, which is probably fueling my enjoyment of it a little bit more than some of the other ones. But
Fond
it's a fun
memories.
movie. It's fun. It's funny to see 1970s Las Vegas, knowing what it is nowadays, like it looks similar in some ways, but in other ways it is completely changed. Like my family went on vacation, I stayed in Circus, and there's an entire sequence that takes place in that place, and that's
Oh
cool. And
wow.
yeah, I did not see this movie before that, because if I had, I would have been losing my freaking mind the whole
Yeah,
vacation we were there. Because I'm like, oh my god, where they shot James Bond.
that's true.
But I think for Connery's last official outing as James Bond, I think this was a fun one to end on. I think it's not as good as some of his other entries, but it's
I mean,
it's
this
fun.
one, I remember the poster. Wait, did I remember the
Yes,
poster?
it's fun. It's fun. Yeah,
Same
I don't
pose.
know.
Same pose. Look at that. Same pose he's doing.
Talking about poses, this is something I learned from Brad Jones, Cinema Snob, who I'm a big fan of, and he's been reviewing a
Yeah.
lot of Bond movies. The gunshot barrel. That is Sean Connery's stunt double who does that. That is not Sean Connery.
Really? Oh wow. Oh,
Yeah.
one of the things I do like about this movie, I like the theme. Diamonds are forever. I do like
Yeah.
that theme a lot. That's a really good theme.
I
Set
mean,
it for failure.
except for You Only Live Twice, I actually think all the Bond themes are pretty solid. You Only Live Twice, I was just like,
I don't even
okay.
remember that one. Jeez. I'm over here
Exactly.
like, wait a
Like
minute.
I was still humming Diamonds Are Forever, Forever,
Yeah.
Forever.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good. It's so good. But we are coming to the end of this, an hour 30, a little few minutes over. Hey, still good. I think that's a really good. We're keeping it at a real nice, brisk pace.
Yeah.
And I think this is the perfect time for us to give our ranking of these respective films.
Yes, I do. Would you like to go first, or do you want me to go first? Your call, sir.
I think what we should do is we should each do our 6 and then do our 5 and then do our 4,
Okay.
3, 2,
I
and
was
1.
going to suggest that, but I thought just because you were saying about timing, I just thought, okay.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. So I will do my 6 and then you tell
Okay.
me your 6 and then you do your 5 and I'll do the 5.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
All right. Coming to notes, I think you can kind of guess what my bottom 2 are from the way I talked about them.
Maybe.
It just kind of depends on what those
Possible.
bottom 2 are. My number 6 is Diamonds Are Forever. This one just really is
Okay.
just not. I do not love this one outside of Jimmy Dean's white performance of whatever this guy is, who gave me a big smile on his face. I think this one is both problematic and just has some really annoying characters that I just really cannot get on board with, villain and hero, and yeah. And there's some great scenes though, great scenes.
For me at number 6, I have You Only Live Twice. Just that was the one to where once I finished it, I was like, I don't think I'll be purchasing this one. I don't own this one yet, and I'm like, I think this is one I could just win until it's on TV or rent it off Amazon again if I ever get the hankering to watch it.
Get it in the box set when they eventually come out with the 25 all 25 films.
I only buy movies that I think I'm gonna want to watch again, which is why I would never buy a box set of Bond like that.
Understandable.
Because when we get to another Bond, there's only one movie of his I want to watch. We'll talk about that later.
Oh Lord, is it Roger Moore? We are in
What?
trouble if that's the
No.
Holy cow, we are in trouble because he has the most. That is not good. And I can probably guess it's either one of 2, but I'll guess off screen. It's probably one of 2 that I'm guessing. And I could be wrong,
off
though.
Screen. I'll see if you can guess which one it is.
Okay, we'll see when we get there.
But everyone else, you have to wait 2 months until you can find that out.
Yes. So
number 5.
I agree with basically everything you said. 5 is You Only Live Twice. It only gets a little bit before because I think that's a really great set piece at the very end. And, Donald Pleasance is a really menacing, Blofeld. But yeah, it's just really problematic in story and in representation, specifically with Japanese culture. So yeah, we do not like it. We do not get a stamp of approval.
Talk about not getting a stamp of approval here. I will explain this when I get to my number 4, but number 5 for me is Thunderball. I think Thunderball is a great movie. We talked a lot about it, but when I was ranking them. My 4 and my 5 were switching back and forth, but right before we got on, I just said if these two movies were on TV and I could only watch one, which one
Yep.
am I going to put on? That's how I did. I think Thunderball is great. I talked about it particularly for the time. Although underwater scenes, the only other movie I
Yes.
could think of that did underwater stuff that extensively was Creature from Black Lagoon in the 50s. Is the only other movie I can think that had
Hmm.
that extensive underwater stuff.
Good pull.
Um, so yeah, it's still a good movie. Like I said, still is one of my favorite Bond moments of all time. But yeah, so what's your number 4?
My number 4 is, and it's definitely gonna be a lot higher on your list, is Doctor No is my number
Okay,
4.
I'm not
Uh,
surprised.
yeah, I like Doctor No just fine. And again, the only ones I really don't like are You Only Live Twice and Diamonds Are Forever. Those are only two I don't really like at all.
Okay,
Doctor No, I like it. I just don't love it, and I think it is a great representation of like at its core what Bond is at its very bare minimum, and because it really just kind of does the minimum, that's why it's the fourth out of the four that I really do like.
yeah, that makes sense. For me, Diamonds Are Forever. I have it 4.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about it. It might be nostalgia because this one I feel like was on TV a lot, and I watched it with my dad, and I have a lot of fond memories of it. I really like Connery in this movie. From the very start, I love that whole opening sequence.
Yeah.
I just have fun with this. It's a fun movie. It's a silly movie. Yeah, Tiffany isn't the best Bond girl, but I don't. She's she's more fun than Honey Rider. Like Honey Rider just kind of
I
annoys me.
agree.
Tiffany at least is fun, like at least she's got a personality to her.
Yeah, okay, she
An
does have
annoying one,
personality.
but at least it's an existent one.
Yes, yes, an annoying one, but an existent one. You're not wrong.
And
Um,
the whole car chase is one of my
yes,
favorite action sequences in a Bond
really
movie.
well done.
So
Very well done. All right. My number 3.
yeah.
Now we're gonna. I think I'm pretty sure I'm curious if we're gonna have the same 1 and 2. We'll see.
We
But
definitely do not have the same 1 and 2.
never mind. All right. Number 3 is Thunderball. I really enjoy
Okay.
Thunderball. It might be location wise, might be one of my favorite Bond locations that we have gone to yet. Again, there is something that is just him and that romper harpooning that guy in that entire situation that kind of just screams like this, like adventure swashbuckling. It's probably the coolest in the sense that we've had there's a lot of adventure in this one where it meets the espionage. We
Yeah.
have this little marriage between the two, and I really enjoy when the espionage is there with the adventure. But also there are some a little more depth in the characters in comparison to like Largo has a little bit more to him. Domino has a little more to her than say some other ones we've had, and it's kind of like a good combination. Even though it's not perfect, the problem it's kind of obviously there always going to be problem. It's going to be very problematic no matter how Bond deals with women, just because
Yeah.
it's of the time. And even nowadays, I can look back and be like, hmm, okay then.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
but
get that.
it's kind of like a contemporary versus a retrospective view of how you're looking at things. But yeah, it's number 3 is Thunderball.
My number 3 is From Russia with Love. I think this is a really great entry. I had a lot of fun revisiting this. Um, like it, you can maybe make an argument that it's better than my number 2, and maybe my number 2 and 3 should shift. But if we're talking about the Bond movies that I watch my top 2 over From Russia with Love more. But this is still, we talked about it. It's, Robert Shaw is fantastic in the movie. The whole
Mhm.
train stuff is great. I like the more focus on the espionage. It's a great movie, but not as good as my top 2 to me.
Well, my 2 is also From Rush with Love, and I have to agree. Shaw is a great foil to Bond, or Shaw is a great foil to Connery, and as their
Yeah.
characters read and MI6's own James Bond, I think they play beautifully. Romanova, I said Romanoff before, and I apologize, but it is Romanova. And I think that Tatiana Romanova, she is, I
You were
think.
thinking about Black Widow when you
Yes,
said
that's why my brain was like said that, and I didn't correct
you're like
myself until I
another
looked back
Russian
later.
spy girl. All right.
Exactly, exactly. I think she's good, not the top tier Bond girl, but I think she does have a little more agency than in the past. And I do hate that we're kind of in the sense of like, oh, does this Bond girl have agency? Because I feel like the one thing that Daniel Craig films have gotten really right is that the Bond girls
Yeah,
are done much better. But I think that
I
also
think
comes with
even
time.
I would say Brosnan and Dalton's films also did that.
Brosnan does. I think Brosnan's are also done really well. Well, most of them are done very well.
Well,
There are a
again, this
couple
is
that I have
all
issue with.
conversations we'll
We'll
get
save
into
that.
over the next couple of
Um,
months, believe me.
yeah, but I think From Russia with Love is an excellent with the great set pieces. Even as weird as some of the scenes in the gypsy camp are, it does have a great fight that does like firefight that
Yeah,
transpires at the very end that I think is really good. Another set piece. It's a call all about what is the best Bond set piece and how do the characters and how does the story progress with those set pieces? Because you can have a great set piece, a la You Only Live Twice, but your film can just be horrendously racist, and it
yeah.
can kind of really ruin yourself, even if it is of the time. Yeah, From Russia with Love, my number two.
My number two is Doctor No. Like I said, I think it comes down to this movie. It's in that rotation of like, you know, Star Wars and Superman movie and Rocky and Top Gun of just like comfort food movies that you're just like, it's a Saturday, it's 4 in the afternoon. I'm not doing anything tonight. Let me put on a movie, pop some popcorn.
Yeah,
Let's watch Doctor No. And I think because, like we talked about, it's so straightforward. It has a villain that I really, really, really enjoy. Um, it's got the lavish locations. Yeah, it's got some very noticeable green screen in some
mm,
sequences, but it was
forgive that.
1962. But Connery is the man in this. And I think like that's why when he passed away that night I watched Doctor No. Even though I had all these other Bond movies, I watched Doctor No because I think that man just right off the bat. And it's not like he had nothing but the books and the script to go off of.
Yeah,
It's not like he had another actor that could be like, oh, this is what this actor did. I want to do something similar or completely different. Like, he had himself and Terrence Young to sort of figure out who this guy was. And
yeah,
I think we can say he achieved it. So, yeah, that's my number two, which means we have the
completely
same number
agree.
one, which
Yeah,
is
and
not
I think
surprising.
not surprising. Our number one, we can say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3,
Goldfinger.
Goldfinger. Yes. Take it away.
No, you take it. Take it.
Oh,
The newer guy. Take it
thank you.
away.
This is a timeless film when it comes to great action spy, espionage, thriller, whatever you want to call it. It is just fantastic when it comes to just kind of portraying the who James Bond at the core of who James Bond is, but also giving a great Bond girl, a great Bond villain, and just kind of the introduction of so many great gadgets and layers and great interactions with some of his great with this cavalcade of characters that we know and love, from Q to M to Felix Leiter. They're all great, and the Fort Knox sequence is also an honestly like really, really just kind of exhilarating and fun sequence, as well as even if the way he goes out is not the best, shall we say, for Goldfinger. It's fine because he was there throughout the entire movie, kind of weaving his way throughout all of it, and was not as complex as he was. I still really enjoyed what he brought, and Sean Connery is also at the top of his game, because who can forget the iconic line that is one of my favorites outside of course James Bond,
Mm.
"I'll have a martini, shaken, not stirred." And do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond. I
I
expect you to
expect you to
die.
die.
Come on. Like,
What
this
about
is. Oh, go ahead.
it's great. No,
What was that one?
it's awesome. I
It's
I don't
great.
know. I was random Sean Connery impression was
Oh,
going in
I
my
was like,
head.
is there a quote I missed?
No, you're fine. No, this is the definition of a Bond movie that I think all the other Bond movies pull from, because it has everything that is classic to Bond is in here. The lavish set pieces, the gadgets, the car, the girl, the villain with the henchmen. It's awesome. It's one of those movies to where everyone puts it really high on their list, and you go, does it deserve to be there? And when you watch it, I can't help but say yes. Yes, it does. It does deserve to be there.
Yes.
It deserves its spot where it sort of lies, I think, amongst Bond fans. I think, like you said, this being a timeless movie, I feel like you could, maybe not a kid, but you could show a teenager who watched all
Yes.
the Daniel Craig movies, and you could prep them with the fact that this is a movie from the 60s, but I feel like unless the kid is, which again, me and Man are maybe not the best because when we were teenagers, we were watching black and white movies from the 50s. I feel like unless they're so jaded to where unless it has like CGI stuff in every scene, I feel like they could watch this movie and still get enjoyment out of it.
I
So
agree
yeah.
100%. Yeah, no, I think this is in my top 5 James Bond of all time.
Top
Of
three
all
for
time.
me. Top three for me.
Yeah, this might be my top 3. I just need to double check and see how it ranks off and everything, but it just
Yeah.
it holds up even after a second viewing. And if it holds up after this many years, I'm confident it's gonna hold up for a while. Not a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination, but just a darn good one in my mind.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
there we go.
think that is how me and Manning are going to end part 1 of our Bond retrospective. Please,
Agreed.
in the comments, let us know what your thoughts and feelings are on the Sean Connery Bond films. How do you rank the movies? Do you agree with Manning and me on stuff that we agreed on, or do you lean more towards me or more towards Manning? Like, is Tiffany annoying or not? Well, she
Yes.
is, but is she an acceptable annoying or not? Do you think Honey Rider is the best Bond girl? If you do, I'd love to
Why?
hear your
Who
explanation.
are you?
But yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun, of course, guys. Next month,
Yes.
we will be covering the title in the thumbnail will say the George Lazenby era, but of course, the man only got one film, so we will only be talking about
Sadly.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which I'm not
Yes.
sure if Manny has seen or not yet.
Well, I will say that I have not. I have not seen 2 Roger Moore films, both of the Timothy Dalton,
Mm,
and then the George Lazenby. I have
okay.
not seen On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I rented it from Amazon, and I hit play, and I said, "You know what? I'm gonna watch this tomorrow. I'm just too tired. I'm gonna go to bed tonight," and I forgot about it. And then there goes my rental.
Oh, poor
Sad.
George
Well,
Lazenby, the forgotten
I'm
Bond.
excited.
Yeah,
I
no,
wanna
that
see it
should be a lot
though.
of fun. But you guys can find me at currents_Matthew on Twitter, MattMovie611 on YouTube, and right here on Take 3 as host of Second Look, the fan podcast, and co-host of Ryman. We gotta cut that. I gotta do that again. You guys as always can find me right here as host of the Fandom Podcast, Second Look, and Simple Tricks and Nonsense with my buddy Abe.
There you go. You can find me here at Cine_Man. That's CINE_MANN, as well as on WFY News 2, where I review movies every other week, ideally. And you can also find me on Letterboxd at Manning Franks. That is my name, all one word. And I believe that is it. You can find me here hosting Gone with the Wind. We're on hiatus at the moment. I still need to edit the last episode. I have been so busy that I have not got a chance to edit it and post it. So we are like the penultimate episode that has not released the final episode just yet. So I'll get on that as soon as we can. Who knows? By the time this goes up, we may have the next one already up. Well, we will see. We're going to talk about when we're going to get that up. So we thank you all for listening on this first initial episode of our James Bond retrospective. Do we know what we're going to call it officially? James Bond retrospective, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
there we
simple.
go. The James Bond retrospective, take 3 edition, the Sean Connery era, deluxe edition director's cut. That's what we're going to call this title. You can follow us here on Take 3 Productions. Subscribe to us. Don't forget to do that, and you will be able to know when our next episode is going to be every month. And look out for George Lazenby and on Her Majesty's Secret Service next month. Thank you, guys. And of course, always. Oh, Sean, how should we end? How should we end this?
Well, I would probably say, get out.
And that's what we do. Get out, y'all.